So students, we were revising chapter 1 of history grade 10, the rise of nationalism in Europe, and that day we have seen the theme of the Frederick Sérieux painting. Then after that we have seen the nation state, absolutist institutions, utopian vision of the Frederick Sérieux. Then after that we have seen what measures were taken by the French revolutionaries in order to promote the feeling of nationalism among the French people. So today we have to discuss now the Civil Code of 1804. So you know the French Revolution. Then when the French Revolution it happened in 1789, the first clear-cut expression of nationalism came from the French Revolution only 1789. After that, you know, the 1799 in 1799 the military dictatorship was established by the Napoleon, and then in 1804 he crowned himself, or he declared himself as the emperor of the France. So when he became the emperor of the France at that time, he has given the Civil Code of 1804, which is also known as Napoleonic Code or the Napoleon Code of 1804. So some of the provisions of this code are this code established equality before law, that all are equal before law. So it established equality before law. Right to property granted. So under this code, the right to property granted. Now this is one of the provision now, that right to property granted. Feudal system was abolished. The feudal system, where the lot of exploitation was done of the peasants through landlords and nobles, so that system was abolished. And now under the code, one more provision was made. It freed peasants from serfdom. So now serfdom also abolished, feudal system also abolished, right to property granted, and this code established equality before law and did away with all the privileges based on birth. So this code did away with all the privileges which were based on the birth. Then after that, guild restrictions were removed. Earlier, the traders, the merchants, businessmen, they can't form the associations, but now guild restrictions were removed and now they can form the associations. Transport and communication systems were improved. So under Napoleon rule, the transport and communication systems were also improved. So again, this is very good from the trade perspective. And so these were the provisions of the Civil Code of 1804, or you can say these were the features, or you can say these were the advantages of the Napoleon rule. This reforms he brought into the system. He simplified the administrative divisions also. He he implemented the uniform system of weights and measures. He reduced the number of currencies also. So all these steps which were taken by the Napoleon, the people were very happy. The conservatives also, if you see, they also don't want to return to the society of pre-revolutionary days because of the changes initiated by the Napoleon. But still, the Napoleon was seen as the modernizer of Europe, no doubt, modernizer of France. He was seen as a liberator. But as power spoils the mind of the people, so certain drawbacks are also there of the Napoleon rule. First, he increased the taxation. So already people were suffering, so he increased the taxation now. Censorship was imposed, so no one can now write against the Napoleon. He imposed censorship, ban was there. He reintroduced slavery. So Jacobins, if you remember, they have abolished the slavery in 1794, and then after the 10-year period, that is 1804, the Napoleon again reintroduced slavery. Forced recruitment of the people into the French armies. So this was again the step which was taken by the Napoleon. This was again went against Napoleon, because forcefully he was recruiting the people into, especially the youth, into the French army, because his dream was to conquer the entire Europe. So these were some of the drawbacks. And the Civil Code of 1804 established equality before law, did away with all the privileges based on birth. Right to property granted under this now, and feudal system was abolished, serfdom was abolished, guild restrictions were removed, transport and communication systems were also improved. So now the next is the making of nationalism in Europe. So the next topic is the making of nationalism in Europe. Now here we have to see that if we see the map today, the Europe map, then we see different countries are there. Italy is there, Germany is there, France is there. So these different countries are there. Switzerland is there in Europe, if we see today's map. But earlier it was not. So earlier, the Germany, Italy, Switzerland, these all were divided into different kingdoms, different duchies, and different cantons. That is the administrative unit. So like this, the situation was there where lived the diverse population. So in this region, the diverse population was living, but only one common binding tie was there. That emperor was the same. So like in your book, it is given the example of the Austrian Habsburg Empire. So within this empire, it was a patchwork of different people. Diverse population was living. It was a blend of different people who spoke different languages. They have different culture. They have different tradition. So like if we see the Austrian Habsburg Empire, in the Bohemian region, in the Bohemia region, the German speaking population was living. Then in the Lombardy region, the Italian speaking population was living. In Galicia, the Polish speaking people were living, and in Hungary, Magyar language was being spoken. So if this is the condition, the diverse population was living, but only one common binding tie they were having, that is the emperor was common, the emperor was one. So if this is the condition, from where the feeling of nationalism emerged. So if this is the condition, diverse population is living, they don't have any common culture, they don't have any common tradition, then from where the unity, the common identity, the common binding will develop. So again, it will develop because they all were being oppressed by the same oppressor, that is they were living under a monarchy and they were all being oppressed by the same oppressor. So now from where the feeling of nationalism will develop, who will take forward the idea of the nationalism in Europe? For this to understand or to answer this question, we need to understand, or we need to see the structure of the European society. So the structure of the European society, we see the aristocracy, the elite class, the upper class. So they were the land owning class, the landlords, aristocrats, the elite people. They were having more resources, more powerful, more dominant class in the continent, aristocracy, and they spoke French, and they are connected by the ties of marriage. Okay, the rich class, they spoke French and they are connected by the ties of marriage, but they were numerically a small group. Aristocracy was numerically a small group, and they are connected by a same style of living, a common way of living. So luxurious lifestyle, sophisticated lifestyle, these aristocracy and elites they were having, and they were connected by the ties of marriage. The next group, peasantry, more in number. So they were more in number, and numerically they were more in number. Majority of population was poor only, and they used to take care of the lands of the aristocrats. So this was the basically the two tier structure of the European society, the aristocracy and the peasantry. And mostly the Central and the Eastern Europe, they were the autocratic monarchies where the autocratic absolute monarch was ruling. And then there was the emergence of the middle class, to which the concept or the idea of national unity will come, that is the middle class, the emergence of the middle class. From where? From the process of industrialization. So when industrialization started, people started moving from rural to the urban area, urbanization started. So industrialization started, the industries they were being set up. So as a result, employment opportunities increased, people started moving towards the cities, they started production. So now these producers, industries, they were producing for the market, trade increased, exports increased, prosperity came to the merchants and the businessman class. So they start sending their kids to the school. So awareness came, more awakening came. So this is how there emerged a middle class, prosperous, wealthier middle class, which was your comprising of merchant, businessmen, traders, and professionals, doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers. So all were there in this middle class, and it emerged from the industrialization which was going on, which started in Britain, and then in the later years it also started in different parts of the Europe. So now we have to revise the concept of liberal nationalism. So the word liberal, it is derived from the Latin word liber, which means free. So the word liberalism is derived from the Latin word liber, which means free. So here for the educated middle class, for the new educated middle class, liberalism stood for freedom of individual. Okay, so it stood for freedom of individual, that all the individuals should be free, equality before law. So the equality should be there, all should be equal before law, no privileges should be given to any of the section of the society. So everyone should be equal before law, freedom of individual, all the rights individual should have, government by consent. So according to their will, they have to form the government. It is not imposed on them by any of the monarch or any of the outsiders. No one can impose the government. So the government should be by their own consent. They have to elect their parliamentary form of government, and the autocracy and the clerical privileges. So they were of the view that this dictatorship, one man rule, it should brought to an end, and all the clerical privileges which were given to the clergy and nobility, it should also be removed, because according to them, whatever social position is there of the people, of the person in the society, should be determined by his or her own hard work rather than the privileges which were given by the monarch by birth. So these kind of privileges, it should be removed, it should be abolished, and they wanted constitution which will guarantee them some of the rights, and representative government where the parliament will be there, constitution will be there, constitution will be drafted, and independent judiciary will also be there. So the two ideas of the liberal middle class consist of national unity. So they wanted unification and liberal nationalism. So this was the two ideas of the liberal middle class. The two ideas of the liberal middle class: national unity, unification they wanted, and the liberal nationalism. So, but it does not means that if we see the liberal ideology, everything is good except one thing, that they were not in favor of the universal adult franchise. They wanted to give this right only to the male having property. So this created the problem. If you see the Constitution of France 1791, the concept of active and the passive citizens, this created the problem further. According to that, the active citizens, the men who are 25 years of age and having property, who are paying taxes, they will be entitled to vote, and other, like the women and the non-property men, they will not be allowed to vote. So basically this created the problem, and the passive citizens, the less prosperous section of the society, who were denied the rights, the voting rights after the revolution, so they started their struggle for the voting rights. So they formed the political clubs, they started writing in the newspaper, they started mobilizing the people for their suffragette rights. So they started the suffragette movement. So this was the one problem. And you have seen the Jacobins during 1793 and 94 when they formed the government. So for a very brief period in 1792, they have given the right to vote to all the men regardless of the wealth who have attained the age of 21 years. So this we have seen. And again the directory which was formed by the wealthier middle class, they again this have reduced to the males who are having the property. So this was the problem. Then again Napoleon also, he has done this only, and he reduced the woman to the status of minor, that she will be under the authority of either husband or father. So obviously, so the people, the section who were denied this kind of rights, they will protest. After this, another problem was state to state restriction was there. So if we talk of economic liberalism, it means freedom of market. There should not be any restrictions on the market. Okay, the free trade should be there, no restriction, no trade barriers, no tariffs should be there. So that is economic liberalism. But here again the problem was there. In Europe, state to state restrictions were there. Suppose if merchant is moving from Hamburg to Nuremberg or Nuremberg to Hamburg, so that person has to cross 11 custom barriers, and again they have to pay 5% custom duty there. So this was the main problem. Then after that, the system of weights and measurement, that is also different. The currency was also different. 30 currencies were there at that time. So and the system of weights and measurement was also different. Like L was the unit in which they used to measure the cloth, and it was something else in one place, and it was different dimension was there in the another region. So this created a lot of problem for the merchants, for the traders, because it is very difficult for them to pay 11 custom barriers to cross and to pay tax there, and then again in different carrying these many currencies, and again the system of weights and measure is also different. So lot of calculations they have to do. So this was obstacle, if you see, in the promotion of the economic growth. So this was you can say this was a hindrance there in the economic development, and prosperity will not come to the merchants if this kind of restrictions will be there. For more prosperity, for more growth, we should give them the liberal atmosphere, the free markets where there are very less regulations. So now What is the solution to this? So solution was Zollverein were created in 1834. So the Zollvereins was created in 1834 at the initiative of Persia. So Persia, they took the initiative and they have formed the Zollverein. Zollverein means the custom unions was formed. So here, with the creation of the Zollverein, what happened? What was the result? The trade barriers were removed and the number of currency was reduced to 2, from 32 to only 2 currencies now trader have to carry, and then uniform system of weights and measure, and custom union was created out of the 39 confederation of the German state which was created by the Napoleon. So at the initiative of Persia in 1834 they have created, or they have formed the Zollvereins.